was part of Westwood One's coverage of the NCAA tournament. He was in San Antonio last night. He will be in San Antonio this weekend. He will be part of the Final Four coverage on Westwood One Radio. I can introduce him in so many different ways, but he is also a former coach of Wagner College basketball in my hometown of Staten Island, New York. He's PJ Carlesimo. How are you doing, Coach?
Excellent. I love the intro. Thank you, Rich. I appreciate that.
You know what? You and I, we go back to the Rock days, man. That's
the best borough, Staten Island Advance. Jay Price doesn't get any better than that.
Jay Price is a great sports columnist for the. And by the way, you said
that's the truth too. Unbelievable.
By the way,
what a great writer. What a great person.
Oh, absolutely. He was there when I was there as well. And by the way, guys, he also did you hear how he called the newspaper?
Oh, yeah.
It's you have to put the accent on the first syllable. It's the advance. It's not the advance. It's the advance. Well done, Coach. I love it. I love it.
Same here.
All right, so let's get into it. What makes Houston so good and so difficult to beat, do you think?
Well, the first thing is Kelvin Sampson. You have to give him just a ton of credit. You look at what he's done at everywhere he's coached. It's amazing. But Kelvin would be the first to tell you. I think it was the first thing he said in the press conference last night. I was watching when I got back to the room. I was rewatching the post game. He said, coaches always say it's about players, but that's the truth, especially at this level. Nobody's winning with mirrors or with great moves when you get to the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight. They're so good defensively. They're so quick. They have good overall size. They're not real tall. I thought that was going to be a bigger problem last night than it turned out to be. Their front court dominated Arizona's. Christian Coloco had just improved so much this year. It's amazing. And I started thinking he wasn't the raw guy that he started the year with, that he was this guy that was playing out of his mind. I happened to be with them in Vegas at the Pac-12 tournament and last week in San Diego, and I said, wow. But their front court just took they took him, Josh Carlton and Fabian White in particular. They just didn't let Christian Coloco do what he's been used to doing. And Umar Ballo's still a little young, and Azuolas Tubelis has just been playing poorly the last 2 weeks. That really hurt Arizona. But their front court is decent size, and they played well. Carlton was a great acquisition, the three guys they added. But when this year started, everybody was talking about Marcus Sasser and Tremont Mark being, two of the better players for Houston. They both go down to injuries. They're out the entire year. He doesn't miss a beat. Jamal Shedd, as a sophomore, I thought he played fantastic last night. Kyler Edwards came over from Texas Tech. They're just really good. They defend so well, Rich. They're long, even though they're not really tall at the center spot, they're very, very long. They play so hard. His teams always play hard. They get you back on your heels. And if you can't attack their defense, which Arizona was unable to do last night, you're in for a long night. And Ben Mathurin, their All-American, struggled. And I thought everything that happened because of Houston's pressure. They outquicked him to every loose ball. They outquicked him on the boards. I mean, they were just the better team last night every which way.
And it just seems to me, PJ, when you're talking about tough defense and also, size but not terribly tall or big, you kind of describe Villanova in a way too, right? I mean, so...
It does. Houston is quicker. They're quicker and they're longer. They're both exceptional half-court defense teams. I think Houston has a little more versatility in terms of they can go up and down the floor maybe a little bit more readily. They're deeper, only slightly deeper. I wouldn't call either of them a deep team, but Villanova right now, basically is playing six. Jay rode with Eric Dixon when he got the third foul. I don't think he even considered taking him out and going any deeper in his lineup, and he got away with it, which was great. Villanova won because they had more players play well. It wasn't a lot more, but it was more than Michigan. The only guy really helping out Hunter Dickinson was Eli Brooks, who you talked about before. Played great in his last college game. It's kind of interesting. Eli has played the most games in the history of the University of Michigan basketball, and Colin Gillespie's played the most games in the history of Villanova basketball. And there's a lot of similarities between those two guys, not the first, at least of which is they played against each other 4 years ago here. And although they weren't big factors in the game, but they played as freshmen in the national championship game. I like both of these teams. Villanova had better be able to attack Houston, but beat them on the dribble, get some things going, because Houston kind of takes you out of what you're trying to do. And they're one of those teams you have, the shot clock runs down, and your guy has to beat their guy. He's got to make a play. No one was able to do that last night, or very few times was Arizona able to do that. So I really like Villanova, obviously, but people people still don't believe Houston's as good as they were. I happen to have them like 3 times in Indianapolis last year. I mean, everybody forgets they just went to the Final Four.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with the numbers they're putting up, the success they're having in the tournament. I mean, it's they're 7 straight 20-win seasons. Their 4th consecutive NCAA. It really doesn't matter what's happened last year. I think matters a little bit, and Houston was a Final Four team, but they've never lost in the Elite Eight. This team's ridiculous. I don't think anybody else is better than 2-0. They're like 6-0 when they've been in the Elite Eight. So they're still a little under the radar, but boy, they are legit, and you had better be able to attack their defense, and you better be able to go with them on the glass.
PJ Carlesimo, who will be calling Villanova and Houston, the regional final in the South on Westwood One Radio this weekend, joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. So I guess anybody who's made it this far has got to give anybody a shot, and certainly I'm not going to slag on Arkansas because Eric Musselman said he hears everything. So what do you think of Duke and Arkansas as a regional final out west?
Well, I mean, personally, Mike is such a good friend, and sentimentally, everybody wants to see him. We actually did for Westwood. Kevin Cougar and I did the Carolina Duke game, and after watching the first one, I'm just sitting there saying, boy, I hope Carolina makes a game of this, makes it legit. And because there was so much, the atmosphere was incredible in Durham for the 3 days leading up to it. And, of course, Carolina came in and played great and are still playing really well. I'd like to see Mike get there. That's not fair to Art. Why should he get there more than Eric in Arkansas? But again, tough cover. I think the difference is the ACC, has Florida State. I think Mike has played more teams like Arkansas than Jay Wright and Villanova have played more teams like Houston. That's kind of convoluted logic, but I think Duke's a little better equipped to go against Arkansas. And for Nova, I think they've got to do what they do all the time. They find a way to slow down the other team, take them out of their offense, and then they out-execute them in the half court. That's the part that normally you don't worry about with Villanova. That's going to be the challenge. I won't be surprised if they do it. But again, it's a strange thing, Rich, in the NCAA. One of the only things I didn't care for, and it's just a silly coach's thing, you had 3 days to prepare for that first game, the Thursday or the Friday game in the first 2 rounds. You were ready for that one. You had days to get ready. You could practice stuff. It was great. Then you have 1 day to prepare for the Saturday or Sunday game. It's usually a better team. You're tired. If you're a less deep team than your opponent, it works against you. And I think all those things are working against Villanova right now. You need the days to prepare. Even for the Final Four, it's the same thing. You have time to prepare for the Saturday game, and then you get 1 day to prepare for the biggest game you've ever played in your life. So it's going to be interesting to watch. I think Mike's team, as young as they are, I still think they're equipped to play against Arkansas. I think that's going to be a great game. I hope we have a great game here in San Antonio.
When did you first meet Coach K, PJ Carlesimo?
Well, I'll tell you what. You named it before. When we're together on Staten Island, Mike's at Army. We actually played again. I mean, I sat. Digger wouldn't put me in the game. I always tell Digger we'd have been better if he ever put me in a game. But I sat on the bench when Mike was the captain. He graduated in 70 from West Point. I graduated in 71 from Fordham. We played each other every year. But where we really met was, I don't think I met when he was an assistant at Indiana. It was when he was coaching West Point and I was coaching Wagner. We played twice then, and that's in the mid-'70s, and we've been very, very good friends. We coached a number of USA teams together back in '80 in the World Championship, or '90 in Buenos Aires. Him, myself, Jim Boeheim, and Joe Harrington were on a staff together, and Mike included me coaching a select team on his first 2, I think, Olympic teams. I would coach the young guys. So we're really, really close for a lot of years. Obviously, when we start talking about how old we are and we start with a 7, we've been around for a long time.
So you first kind of met Mike Krzyzewski when you played against each other, and then you coached against each other. He's at West Point, you're in Staten Island, New York, and Grimes Hill's finest institution of higher learning, Wagner College. and then what was it like coaching Olympic teams with him, PJ? What was that like?
It was fantastic. First of all, he's inclusive. He's great with his staff. I mean, he welcomes input. The fact that he and I forgot to mention this, how dumb I am. I forgot to mention 92. We were both lucky enough to be assistants on the Dream Team.
Yeah, that one.
Chuck Daly,
that one.
Wilkins. That little summer in Barcelona that we spent together. And it's really a family thing, Rich, honestly. Like, I've known Mickey and his girls for so long when they were young. And, I mean, now the grandkids. So it's amazing for us to be together. But Mike hasn't changed. Mike is exactly who he was from the Polish family that he was raised in, Catholic Polish family in Chicago. He has not varied too much, to be honest with you. He's varied in terms of how he handles his players. He handles the so-called modern guy better than most of us old dinosaurs. But in terms of his coaching philosophy, in terms of his family philosophy, and how he is with his beliefs, he has not changed very much at all. He truly hasn't.
Did you at any point at that Dream Team look at, I mean, because again, you guys had accomplished so much, and Coach K accomplished so much, look at each other and go, this is the wildest thing of all time? At any point?
Yeah, from day one. Honestly, when the first meeting we had had training camp, if you will, at UCSD. We practiced in UC San Diego's gym. We stayed at that hotel that sits on top of Torrey Pines, the golf course, which we didn't get to play, unfortunately. But when Chuck called the first meeting, it was like 7 or 7:30 the first night, the night before we started practice, and those guys started walking in the room. Now, I knew some of them from Nike because a bunch of them had been with Nike and on Nike trips, the Nike coaches trip, like Michael and Charles and Patrick Ewing and Chris Mullen I had coached against in the Big East. But I had never met Birdie. I had never met John Stockton. I had never met Karl Malone. When they walked in the room, I mean, it was only like 15 or 16 of us in the room. When they started walking in, you were like, whoa. I mean, it was literally, I think, the best basketball team ever put together. And you had guys at different levels of their career. Some of them were getting toward the end. Some of them were in their prime. There was actually a couple that were still, younger and just, becoming the superstars that they would become. But, I mean, it had to blow. I don't care who it was. It had to blow you away. It probably even affected Chuck and Lenny. I mean, as great as those two are, and Lenny was, as a player and as a coach, when those guys kept walking in the door, you're going, wow, this is our team. Are you kidding me? It was remarkable. The only time you see guys like that is at a cocktail party at the Hall of Fame.
That's right.
Before or after the induction. These guys were coming in for a team meeting, and we were going to start practice the next day with the 12 of them. It was a little bit different.
And were you guys, you and Coach K, in charge of Leitner as well? Like that on the home?
Christian was my guy. I had a nickname for Christian. I can't say it on this network. I want to continue to work for Coach Deneroff, but I've known Christian a long time. And Charles befriended him. Charles was really good to him. Charles kind of took him under his wing and made sure that, he wasn't just treated like the college guy on the team and all that. He was really good. But Mike, did a lot. If Mike was running the transition break drill, which he's run ever since he was in coaching, probably started with Coach Knight at Indiana at Army. But I was in charge. I had golf tee times. I had restaurant. I had a lot of important things that I had to do. Michael needed a golf. Charles needed a restaurant. But it was funny, Rich. Honestly, we would get to a place and we bumped around. People forgot we went from San Diego to Portland because we had to qualify. There was different type of qualification in those days, but we didn't win the gold medal in '88 in Seoul, so we had to qualify at the Tournament of the Americas in Portland. So we played 6 or 7 games in Portland. Then we reconvened for a day in Newark, and then we went to Monte Carlo to train for a week before we went to Barcelona. And each time we would get to a place, honestly, David Robinson was rehabbing, so he'd be looking for a track so he could run. I forget what the injury was, but he was rehabbing his knee. Carl always wanted to know where he could lift. Birdie, Michael, Patrick, and I hadn't realized because Patrick was not a great shooter when he was at Georgetown. They would want to know when they could get in the gym and get extra shots up. And it struck me, as great as that team was, if we got there before or people stayed after practice, the guys that stayed were like Mully, Patrick Ewing, the shooters, like the guys who shot the ball, MJ, the guys who were the good shooters. Even on that team, the other guys would go do whatever they were doing, but the great shooters wanted to know, where's their gym? Where can I get the extra shots up? Carl always wanted to know, where's there a weight room? I got to lift every day. It was really impressive to see, those guys were so good at their craft, but how they did the extra things that made, each of them in their different ways special.
PJ Carlesimo here on the Rich Eisen Show. Before I let you go, I would be remiss if I did not bring up Shaheen Holloway to you.
Oh, man.
Since he's rumored to be, one of your successors at Seton Hall.
I started. We didn't get him. George Blaney finished the job. Shah was the same class, if I recall, and again, my senility sometimes comes into play, as Timmy Thomas. They were going to be the two best players in Jersey, and you knew that from when, even though Shah was, New York, but he went to St. Patrick's Elizabeth, you knew. So we started recruiting him. I forget whenever it was legal, honestly. It was 8th grade or 9th grade. So we recruited him for years, and then I left to go to Portland, and George Blaney came in, and George finished it off. We didn't get Tim. He went to Villanova. Why? I would never know. I don't know why anyone would go to Villanova when they'd go to Seton Hall. But Timmy went to Villanova, but Shah went to Seton Hall. George finished off the recruiting. So I do feel a little bit of, I started it, and obviously the years he was Kevin Willard's assistant, we've remained in touch. And I hope the Hall gets him. I was afraid every job that was open, people are going to be all over him if they ever get done with this run at St. Peter's. So I hope the Hall's able to get him. I don't want to tell him who to hire or whatever, but I mean, an alum and somebody that just, is so good at what he does and is such an impressive young man that I hope he ends up in South Orange. But I think it might be. They might have some competition before this thing is over.
Well, I got to tell you, PJ, he was on our show the day after bouncing Kentucky. We reached out to get him, and he called in. And, we went back and forth about the old days where he was the all-star of the McDonald's All-American team with Kobe on it. And you mentioned Tim Thomas and Rip Hamilton. And so after going down memory lane with him a little bit like that, I finished the interview by telling him that I had Kentucky winning it all. And he just destroyed my bracket. And here, listen to his response. It was like one of the best sound bites I've heard on this show in recent memory, and it sounds like exactly like a coach. He said, "I've been telling people all year not to bet on us," and I thought to myself, "Did he just leave out the don't in the don't bet? Don't bet against it." He says, "I told everybody don't bet on us," and I thought, is he saying not against us? And so his answer was, "I told everyone this year don't bet on us because I have no idea which team's showing up that night." Is what he said, and I thought that was like he's full on coach now, man. I mean, he's great.
Just a special young guy. I call him a young guy, but I'm so proud that we go so far back together, and I would love it if he does end up. And no ill will toward our Jesuit school in St. Peter's back when we were on Grimes Hill and the Toad Hill all over the island. We'd go over to was the Anatelli Center then. In fact, I'm wondering watching that. What's it called? Run Guy Run or whatever the heck the name of it is. Is that the old Anatelli Center, or is that a new building that St. Peter's is playing in? I don't even know. I'm watching their students watch the games on TV. I guess they'll be in Philly, though. Now, I mean, they only got to ride down the turnpike, so hopefully they'll all be there in Philadelphia cheering them on.
There'll be fun times tonight, PJ. Thanks for the call. Look for another one before it's all over and cutting down the nets. I really appreciate the conversation. Have a great time calling the game between Houston and Villanova tomorrow on Westwood 1. Thanks for the call,
Thanks,
PJ.
Rich. Great being with you.
Always. PJ Carlesimo here on the Rich Eisen Show. How great was that, huh?
Awesome.
How great was that? So many great stories. Just fantastic. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here